Hello and welcome to Wiser with Time. Let me start by asking you something most people are afraid to admit out loud. How many years have you spent living a life that wasn't truly yours? Not a life that was bad. Not a life that lacked love, but a life shaped by obligations, expectations, and silent compromises. A life where you showed up for everyone else, but forgot how to show up for yourself. If that question stirs something inside you, you're not alone, because for decades I lived that same way. And maybe you did too. We worked, we sacrificed, we raised children, held relationships together, played the role society expected: strong, reliable, agreeable, mature. We smiled when we wanted to cry. We stayed when we wanted to walk away. We apologized for wanting more. We buried pieces of ourselves so deeply we almost forgot they were ever there. But then something happened, not in some dramatic, cinematic way, more like a quiet moment on a Tuesday afternoon, when the noise of the world paused, just long enough for us to finally hear the one voice we'd been ignoring all these years. Our own, and that voice said, "Oh, you're not done yet. You still get to choose who you are. It's not too late, it's never too late." For me, that voice came after turning 50. For you, it might have been 60 or 70. But no matter when it arrives, one thing becomes clear: growing older doesn't mean disappearing. It means becoming visible to ourselves. You see, I'm not young anymore. I can feel it in my joints. I see it in the mirror. And yet, I've never felt more alive, more real, more honest. Because for the first time in my life, I don't need to impress anyone. I just want to be myself. And that, my friend, is a freedom I never knew I was allowed to have. So if you're watching this wondering if it's too late to start over, if you've ever sat alone and whispered, "Is this all there is?" If you've ever felt invisible in a world that seems to worship youth and noise, I want you to hear me, really hear me. Your story isn't over, your voice still matters. And you, just as you are right now, are more than enough. This isn't a video about regrets. It's not about what we missed or should have done or wished had gone differently. No. This is about awakening, a sacred moment when we stop chasing who we used to be, and finally begin honoring who we've quietly become. Because the truth is, we don't want to be younger, we want to be seen, we want to be heard. We want to be free to live the rest of our lives on our terms. So today, I'm going to share with you the journey back to that truth. Not as a guru, not as someone who has it all figured out, but as a fellow traveler walking beside you on this strange, beautiful, liberating path called aging. We'll talk about the masks we've worn, the identities we outgrew, the quiet rebellions that saved our souls, and the courage it takes to say, "This is who I am, and I'm finally okay with that." Before we dive in, I want to ask you, what part of yourself have you been hiding for too long? Tell me in the comments, because your story may be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Let's create a space where we're not afraid to be honest, to be raw, to be finally, fully, unapologetically real. And if this resonates with you, subscribe to Wiser with Time. This is just the beginning of a community that honors depth over perfection, truth over performance, and wisdom over noise. Now take a deep breath with me. Release the years you've spent pleasing everyone but yourself, and prepare to meet the person you've been becoming all along. Because no, I'm not young anymore, but I've never lived this honestly. Let's begin. There's something quietly heartbreaking about waking up one day and realizing you've spent a lifetime playing a part in someone else's story. Most of us didn't intend to do it. We weren't forced. We weren't coerced. We simply adapted. We became what we thought we had to be, what would keep the peace, what would make others proud, what would make us lovable. We stepped into the roles so early, so automatically, that we didn't even notice they were costumes. And at first, those roles served us. They helped us feel safe, guided, accepted. The good daughter, the dependable son, the loyal spouse, the tireless parent, the responsible employee, the one who never complains, the one who always says yes. We learned how to read a room before we spoke. We learned when to stay silent even when everything in us wanted to speak. We learned how to minimize our needs to protect the comfort of others, and people admired us for it. You're so mature, so selfless, so steady, so kind, so easy to be around. But admiration is a hollow reward when it comes at the cost of your truth. Because for every year we spent perfecting the role, we drifted further from the one person who mattered most. Ourselves, it didn't happen all at once. It was subtle, little choices, little sacrifices, moments we swallowed our truth for the sake of peace, moments we said I'm fine when we weren't, moments we smiled when we were hurting, moments we stayed when we wanted to run. And over time, the role became so convincing, even we began to believe it. But underneath the role, something deeper remained, something quieter, something ancient, a knowing, a pull. A truth that whispered, this isn't all of you. For many, that whisper is easy to ignore when life is busy, when the needs of others fill every corner of your day. But then the kids move out, the job ends, the house gets quiet. The calendar slows, and in that silence, the whisper becomes impossible to ignore. It asks questions we've avoided for decades. Who am I when no one needs me? Who am I when I stop performing? What do I want, truly want, now that I'm not trying to be good for anyone else? These are not easy questions. They don't come with tidy answers, but they are sacred questions. They are the doorway to freedom. Because the truth is, we cannot live honestly while still trying to fulfill roles that were never designed to hold the whole of who we are. We can't keep being the peacemaker if it means silencing our needs. We can't keep being the caregiver if it means abandoning our well-being. We can't keep being the strong one if it means never allowing ourselves to be soft. Roles are not inherently bad. They can be beautiful acts of love, service, and meaning. But when a role becomes a mask, when it becomes a shield, when it becomes a prison, it's time to let it go, and letting go doesn't mean you failed. It means you grew. It means the old version of yourself completed its purpose. It means you're ready to stop living for performance and start living from presence. Because the truth is, no one gets to define you now, not your family, not your history, not the expectations you absorbed at 20 and carried like gospel through your 30s, 40s, and 50s. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to want different things. You are allowed to say, that version of me helped me survive. But now I want to thrive. You're allowed to take off the costume, even if no one claps, even if people are confused, even if it means starting from a place of not knowing who you are yet, because not knowing is honest. It's fertile ground, it's the space where authenticity begins to bloom. So take a moment, breathe, and ask yourself gently, what role have I outgrown? What part of me have I hidden for the sake of approval? What do I want now? Not what I should want, not what they want, but what I truly want. You don't have to answer it perfectly, but ask it. Let it sit in your body. Let it move through your life. Because when you start asking those questions, you begin to live not from expectation, but from truth. And truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's uncertain, is always more peaceful than pretending. You are not here to play a part. You are not a supporting character in someone else's story. You are not defined by how well you perform. You are here to be whole, to be real, to be honest even when it's messy, to be free even when it's unfamiliar. You are allowed to disappoint people in the name of not disappointing yourself. You are allowed to walk away from identities that no longer fit. You are allowed to say, this is who I am now, even if who you are now would confuse who you were 10 years ago. That's what growth looks like. So let yourself be seen, let yourself be soft, let yourself be honest. And let yourself belong to you, because the roles we played served their purpose. They kept us safe. They helped us belong, but they are not who we are. Who we are is deeper, wider, truer, more alive than any part we've ever performed. And now, finally, we're ready to live as that person. In the next part of this journey, we'll explore what happens when life breaks us open. When the identities we clung to no longer hold, and something new, something unfamiliar but undeniably real, begins to rise in their place. But for now, I invite you to ask yourself, quietly and without judgment, what role am I ready to release? And who might I become when I do? This is the work of growing wiser with time, and it's just beginning. There comes a moment, quiet, unplanned, when the life you've built begins to crack. It may not be loud, it may not be dramatic. No shouting, no explosions, no dramatic music, just a soft unraveling, a silent shift. A growing stillness where noise once lived. It might begin on a Tuesday afternoon, standing in the kitchen, realizing that the kids don't need you like they once did. It might start in the car after a doctor's appointment, hearing the word chronic for the first time and knowing your body will never quite move the way it used to. It might appear in the pause after retirement, when the meetings are gone and your calendar suddenly feels like an empty room with nothing inside it. It might rise in the middle of the night, when you roll over in bed, and the person beside you feels like a stranger you've been performing love with for years. Or maybe it comes without an event at all, just a quiet moment of realization. This life doesn't feel like mine anymore. And that's where the breaking begins. It's terrifying, isn't it, to see the familiar start to dissolve. To watch the routines and identities and structures you once relied on begin to fall apart. To admit without shame or anger, I do know who I am right now. We spend our lives building families, building careers, building reputations, building dreams that sometimes weren't even ours to begin with. And then suddenly, often in midlife or later, we're faced with something no one ever prepared us for. What do I do when the building no longer fits the person I've become? This is the moment of breaking, and though it hurts, it's not a tragedy. It's a holy invitation. Because here's the truth no one told us when we were young. Sometimes the life we thought we wanted has to fall apart so the life we truly need can rise in its place. We don't talk about this enough. How grief and clarity often walk hand in hand. How losing what no longer serves us can feel like death before it feels like liberation. How the breaking, though painful, can be the most honest moment we've had in decades. When the role fades. When the people we lived for drift away. When the identity we wore like armor no longer fits. We're left with something raw, naked, tender, unfiltered ourselves. And for a while that can feel unbearable. Because we've never learned how to be with ourselves. We've learned how to perform, how to please, how to produce, how to endure, but stillness, presence, honesty, those are muscles most of us never strengthened, so the breaking teaches us. It teaches us how to sit with the ache, how to feel without numbing, how to ask what matters now, instead of what do they expect of me. It teaches us how to let go of what was, even when we don't yet know what will be. And in that breaking, something sacred stirs, something ancient, something beyond language. You begin to remember a version of yourself that existed long before the roles. The one who used to dream. The one who used to dance without shame. The one who wanted more meaning, more connection, more presence. The one who longed for depth, not just duty. You begin to feel that person stirring beneath the wreckage. And it's not always pretty. It's not polished or perfect. It's messy, it's vulnerable, it's confusing, but it's real. And after a lifetime of performance, real is a miracle. You begin to say things you used to swallow. You begin to cry without apologizing. You begin to laugh from your belly, not your mask. You begin to look in the mirror, not to criticize, but to ask, who are you becoming? The beautiful breaking isn't about collapse, it's about becoming. It's about meeting the version of yourself that was always waiting beneath the noise. It's about choosing soul over script. It's about listening to the whisper that says, you deserve more than survival. It's about trusting that the cracks aren't signs of weakness, they're how the light gets in. So many of us resist the breaking. We fear the judgment, we fear the unknown, we fear being seen in our unraveling. But what if the unraveling is the sacred part? What if your softness is your strength? What if your tears are your truth speaking louder than ever before? What if letting go is not failure but freedom? We were taught that aging meant fading. But I believe aging is blooming. Not outwardly perhaps, but inwardly, profoundly, honestly. In the breaking, we bloom from the inside out. Not everyone will understand your breaking. Not everyone will walk with you through it. Some will ask you to go back to the role. Some will be uncomfortable with your honesty. Some will call your freedom selfish, dramatic, confusing. Let them. This path is not for everyone, but it is for you. Because you've earned the right to live honestly. You've earned the right to change. You've earned the right to begin again, not from scratch, but from experience. You've earned the right to build a life that reflects your soul, not just your obligations. So let it break, let the old shape crumble, let the facade fall away. Let the truth rise, clumsy, radiant, unfamiliar, because in the breaking, you're not falling apart, you're finally falling into yourself. You're remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. You're rediscovering the wisdom your soul always carried. You're reintroducing yourself to your breath, to your body, to your own quiet knowing. And maybe, for the first time in a very long time, you feel a quiet sense of relief. Not because everything is fixed, not because all the answers have arrived, but because you're finally telling the truth about who you are, about what you want, about what you will no longer tolerate, about what you're ready to live for. And that, dear one, is the beginning of real life. The kind of life that doesn't need applause, the kind of life that doesn't need approval. The kind of life that feels like home, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. This is the beautiful breaking, messy, honest, free, and from here forward everything changes. In the next part of this journey, we'll explore what it means to rebuild, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. To create a life rooted in presence, simplicity, truth, and joy. To reclaim what was lost and to nurture what's newly blooming. But for now, I want to leave you with this. You are not broken, you are breaking open. And that is the most beautiful thing of all. Once the breaking comes and you stop resisting it, there's a strange kind of silence that follows. Not the kind of silence that feels empty, not the silence of absence or loneliness, but the kind of silence that feels alive, spacious. Sacred for the first time in years, maybe decades, there's no performance, no pressure to prove, no role to uphold, just breath, just stillness, just you. It can feel disorienting. To go from being surrounded by demands and expectations to sitting quietly with your own thoughts. To realize how long it's been since you asked yourself, what do I actually want now? To admit that at this stage of life, the deepest hunger isn't for more accomplishments or applause. It's for wholeness. That's where the real work begins, not in rebuilding the life you had, not in chasing a new version of success, but in learning, perhaps for the first time, how to truly belong to yourself. Reclaiming the self is not a lightning strike. It's not a grand transformation. It's a gentle, slow return. It begins with noticing. Noticing where you've abandoned yourself in small ways. Noticing the stories you've believed that never served you. Noticing how often your choices were made to keep others comfortable while leaving your own heart unheard. And then, gently, compassionately, beginning to choose differently. It's in the morning moment when you sit quietly with your coffee and ask, what do I want to feel today, instead of what do I need to achieve? It's in the decision to say no, not out of rebellion, but out of clarity. It's in allowing your body to rest without guilt. It's in taking up space again through words, through movement, through expression. You begin to remember that you are not a reflection of who others need you to be. You are not defined by your usefulness. You are not the sum of your sacrifices. You are not just what you've done for others. You are a soul. You are a body. You are a spirit. You are you, and you deserve to come home to yourself. For many of us, this process feels foreign. We've spent so many years focused outward on our children, our careers, our families, our communities, that turning inward feels selfish. Indulgent, strange, but the truth is coming home to yourself is not selfish. It's responsible, it's sacred, it's necessary, because no one else can live your life for you, no one else can hear your soul's longing. No one else can give you permission to be fully alive. That's yours to claim. And reclaiming it starts with small acts of courage. It might mean picking up a pen and writing down thoughts you haven't spoken in years. It might mean taking yourself on a walk, not for fitness, not for steps, but just to notice the world again. It might mean eating what your body truly craves instead of what your mind has been trained to call right. It might mean creating art even if no one will ever see it. It might mean standing in the mirror and speaking to yourself as a friend, not a critic. These acts may seem small, but they're revolutionary. Because every time you choose your truth over your training, you reclaim a piece of yourself. And over time, those pieces gather, they assemble, they reconnect, and you begin to feel something new forming, something whole, something true. You begin to trust yourself again, not because you're always right, not because you've figured everything out, but because you're listening now. You're listening to your body when it says slow down. You're listening to your instincts when they say this space doesn't feel safe. You're listening to your joy when it says more of this, please. You're listening to your sadness when it says I need time. You're listening to your truth even when no one else understands it. And that is where your power lives. You no longer need to convince anyone. You no longer need to earn your worth. You no longer need to justify your needs. You simply know them, honor them, live them. This is how selfhood returns, not with noise but with depth, not with force but with tenderness, not with perfection but with presence. You begin to create boundaries, not to push others away but to protect your peace. You begin to say yes to things that nourish you, even if others find them strange or unnecessary. You begin to say no without explanation because your no is sacred too. You begin to build a life not from reaction but from intention. A life where there is space for quiet, space for creativity, space for rest, space for wonder, space for depth, space for you. And as you reclaim that space, something shifts. You begin to feel whole again, not because everything is perfect, but because for the first time you are fully with yourself. You are not rushing. You are not escaping. You are not abandoning your truth for comfort or compliance. You are here, and that is everything. From this place of grounded selfhood, you begin to see the world differently. You notice beauty in the ordinary. You savor small joys that used to pass you by. You connect with people more deeply because you're no longer pretending. And maybe, just maybe, you begin to feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the peace of silence or avoidance, but the peace that comes from being congruent, from knowing that your outer life matches your inner truth, from waking up each day and meeting yourself with honesty, kindness, and presence. This is the fruit of reclamation. It doesn't always look dramatic. It often goes unnoticed by the world. But within you, it's a revolution. You are no longer a stranger to your own life. You are no longer disappearing behind expectations. You are no longer acting from old scripts. You are writing a new story now, one that belongs entirely to you. And yes, some people may not understand this new version of you. Some may drift, some may question, some may even resist. That's okay. They're not meant to understand your reclamation. They're not meant to approve of your wholeness. Because this journey was never about them. It's about you. It's about the woman who stayed quiet for too long. It's about the man who carried everyone else's needs and forgot his own. It's about the soul that waited patiently for the noise to quiet down. It's about you coming home to the life that was always meant to be yours. One choice at a time, one moment at a time, one truth at a time. This is reclaiming the self, and it is the most important work you'll ever do. In the final part of our journey, we'll explore what it means to live from this place of honesty and freedom. To not just reclaim yourself, but to embody your truth fully, joyfully, and unapologetically in every season of life ahead. But before we go there, I want to leave you with this reflection. Ask yourself each morning not what should I do today, but what would it look like to live this day honestly just for me? Let that question guide your breaths. Let it shape your choices. Let it draw you back again and again to yourself. You are worth returning to. You always have been. You always will be. There comes a moment when you stop searching for who you're supposed to be and begin honoring who you've already become. You wake up, look at yourself in the mirror, not with judgment, not with regret, but with recognition. You say to that reflection softly and steadily, "This is me, and I no longer need to apologize for it." That is the truth I now live by, not a truth shaped by society's expectations. Not a truth inherited from family roles or old belief systems. Not a truth rooted in who I used to be or who I tried to be, but a truth that rises from within me. Slowly, quietly, unshakably, the truth that says, I don't need to be young to be worthy. I don't need to be busy to be valuable. I don't need to be admired to be enough. I don't need to chase anyone's version of a meaningful life. I just need to live mine honestly, fully, freely. This is not the kind of truth that comes in books or lectures or external answers. It's the kind that emerges when you've walked through the fire, when you've lost what no longer serves you, when you've stood in the ruins of the life you thought you needed and finally found peace in the life that's quietly yours. It's not a loud truth. It doesn't need to be shouted or defended. It doesn't demand recognition. It simply lives in me like a steady pulse, like a knowing breath. And from this truth, everything changes. I speak differently now, not to impress, not to convince, but to connect, to express, to tell the truth. I move differently now. Not to perform, not to keep up, but to feel, to notice, to honor what my body asks for. I make decisions from a different place. Not out of fear, not to prove I'm still relevant, but from presence, from clarity, from peace. I no longer say yes just because I'm afraid of disappointing others. I no longer chase validation like it's oxygen. I no longer shrink myself to make others comfortable. I've learned that discomfort is not my enemy. Silence is not emptiness. Simplicity is not lack. Slowness is not weakness. I've learned that I am most powerful when I am most honest. And honesty at this stage of life feels like a kind of liberation I didn't even know I was allowed to want. There is a joy in not pretending anymore. There is a freedom in not needing to be understood by everyone. There is a beauty in simply being, in each breath, each glance, each quiet moment of presence. I don't chase excitement the way I used to. I chase meaning. I chase alignment. I chase integrity between what I feel inside and how I show up outside. I've stopped trying to fix everything. I've stopped believing that healing means returning to who I was before. Now healing looks like living forward with softness, with courage, with truth. Sometimes I grieve what I've lost. The years, the people, the roles. The opportunities I didn't take. But I no longer live in that grief. Because I've learned to see what's here, what's still growing, what's still possible, what's still waiting for me in this chapter I used to think was the ending. This is not the ending. This is the unfolding. This is the season where everything that matters comes into focus, where the noise fades, where I see with deeper eyes, where I listen with an open heart, and I don't need to be younger. I just need to be honest, with myself, with others, with life. That's the truth I now live by, the truth that honors rest, that allows grief, that embraces joy without guilt, that loves people without needing to be needed by them. That creates not to impress but to express, the truth that walks slowly. That says no with love, that lets go without bitterness, that remembers there's nothing left to prove. This truth is quiet, but it's strong. And it anchors me in ways that no external accomplishment ever could. This is the gift of growing older, not in spite of the years, but because of them. The lines on my face tell stories. The gray in my hair is a map of what I've survived. The tenderness in my heart is a result of every time I was broken and chose not to close. I used to think I needed to hold it all together to be respected. Now I know the real power comes from allowing it to fall apart and still choosing to rise again. So I live with a new kind of grace now. The grace to not know all the answers, the grace to make space for mystery, the grace to be curious again, the grace to begin again no matter how many times I've already begun. And if you're here with me, watching, listening, feeling this in your bones, then maybe you're ready too, ready to live honestly, ready to stop performing, ready to let go of who you were taught to be and embrace who you truly are. Because you're not too late, you're not too old, you're not behind, you're exactly on time for the life that's calling you now. And I want to invite you gently, deeply, without pressure, to share one truth that you're ready to live by. Write it. Speak it, breathe it, let it live somewhere outside of your silence. Because the more we share our truth, the more we create space for others to do the same. That's what Wiser with Time is about. Not about pretending we have it all figured out. Not about chasing perfection, but about choosing truth, choosing depth, choosing life. So I'll leave you with this. You are allowed to begin again. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to want peace more than progress. You are allowed to feel joy even in the midst of loss. You are allowed to live with gentleness, with fire, with love, with grief. And you are allowed to do it all honestly starting now. This is the truth I now live by. And it has set me free.